In the wake of the coronavirus and the recommended courses of action, we at Tiny Table Talks hope you are staying safe, healthy, and hydrated. If you are able to, adhering to social distancing and working from home is recommended, but if you do have to go out, ensure that you wash your hands and use a mask if possible. Now, on to the show. Hello, and welcome back to Tiny Table Talks. We're here every Thursday on Spotify and YouTube, so be sure to check us out. And please follow us on Instagram at the CC Zone. Last week, we talked personality quizzes and played a round of 21 questions. Today, the Tiny Table Talks team will be looking back and looking forward as we review the 21st century so far. Given that we are taking measures to adhere to social distancing, I sent members of our team questions pertaining to this topic that they could answer from home. Here are some of their answers. My name is Ariana, and I spoke to 4 people.
Hey, I'm Laura.
Hi everybody, it's Chloé back at it again.
Hi guys, I'm Maeva and I'm here since the very beginning of the podcast series.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Ben Vandemark, and I'm currently sitting in the lovely basement of my home in Toronto. Just finished up a 3-week hiatus from the podcast. I was on vacation for about a week, and I happened to be on vacation when a lovely thing called a pandemic came out. So when I came back, I had to self-isolate for about 2 weeks, and I'm currently celebrating those 2 weeks being over.
I started everyone off with the regular introductory question. This week it was, how are you liking the 21st century so far?
So I quite enjoy it, even if now it's quarantine. It's pretty cool to work from home, even if I was expecting to discover more Canada. Nevertheless, it's not horrible.
So far, it's going pretty well for me, I would say, because I've accomplished one of my biggest goal, which was to study and work abroad. Yeah, because I'm from France and now I'm working in Canada. But now with this coronavirus situation, I've never thought about leaving a pandemic, I would say. But yeah, I think that's the biggest flop of my whole life, the COVID-19 thing. And I hope that this situation will kind of calm down and yeah, like stay safe and take care, everyone.
Then we started to go a little deeper. Do you remember going from 1999 to the year 2000? How old were you?
I was 3 years old when the 21st century came around, and I hate to say it, but I was just about a year too short of remembering anything from that decade. My first memories came sometime around early 2001 when I was about 4 years old. Really, I truly can't remember anything before that, so I think because of that, I've always considered myself a 2000s kid, even though I came in the latter of 1997. But I don't know anything about that decade, so screw you. I'm a 2000s kid. That's how I like it.
I was just under 5 years old when we shifted from 1999 to the year 2000, and I do remember going back to preschool and it being a big deal that it was January 2000, but that's about as extensive as my memory gets for going into the new millennium.
I don't remember. I was 4 years old. I was 4 years old and I was probably celebrating it with my family and my cousin, but no, I don't remember.
I actually remember like one event that really changed my life. That was the year where my sister was born because she was born in 1999. I was 4 years old. I can clearly remember seeing her for the first time because, at 4 years old, I really didn't know what a baby looked like. I was just looking through the pictures of the newborn babies at the hospital, and yeah, I didn't have like a specific idea of how my sister will look like. But then my mom eventually got out of the maternity ward, and my very first thought when I saw my sister, because she was still like sleeping, obviously, it was, oh, that's how a baby look like. Why is she still sleeping? And because I was afraid and anxious of touching her in case if she's gonna cry or something like that, I didn't want to touch her or even like pat her. So my mom told me, yeah, just kiss your little sister. So I just kissed her. And yeah, that's the main event that marked my like 1999 year to my 2000 year.
What have been your biggest personal milestones in this century so far?
My like biggest achievement of the 21st century was me going abroad and working abroad right now.
Something I'm proud of is the fact that I got 3 diplomas. I hope I'm going to obtain the fourth one, which is my master's degree in September. The educational system is different in France, but yeah, it's the equivalent of my master's degree. And I think it's a pretty cool thing I achieved.
The 2000s for me, I was going to say, was the decade of elementary school because it was pretty perfect setup. I started junior kindergarten, September 2001, and wound up graduating from elementary school from 6th grade in June of 2009. That sort of represents like my first little milestone because, yeah, just that whole decade. I don't really have any big, exciting, crowning achievements. I just remember hanging out in the playground, playing with my friends, coming home, religiously watching SpongeBob SquarePants and Fairly Odd Parents at 4 o'clock every afternoon on YTV, and just stuff like that. And beyond that, finished middle school 2011, high school 2015, and most recently university just at the end of 2019. So the 2010s was a decade of higher up education, of actually really hard work.
I'd have to say my biggest personal milestones in this century so far would be getting my education in high school and university, as well as all my film endeavors. Any shorts that I've done that have made it to festivals or won awards, I'm very, very proud of those, and for the connections I've made and to extend myself creatively. Some more little milestones, I guess, would be when I got my dog. I really like that. Also, traveling. Any chance I got to travel was huge for me because it always opened my eyes in a new or unique way depending on where I was going. What's the most memorable moment of your 2000s?
Because my parents are from like Asia, and they kind of moved to France because of political reasons. 2008 was my very first time with my family in Laos and Thailand. So I could kind of discover where they grew up, how was the culture over there. Yeah, I really liked it, actually. Yeah, I think that would be my most memorable moment because I could meet my family over there. So yeah.
My most memorable moment of my 2000s were the times that I traveled with my family. So, because my mom is Peruvian and my dad is St. Lucian, I've been to Peru and St. Lucia multiple times. The first time I went to Peru, I remember very vividly because we went to many cities and I got to see Machu Picchu, and it was amazing. It genuinely felt like being inside a postcard. And going to St. Lucia and visiting my grandparents. Also, I guess technically, because I was like middle school, of course, my grade 8 graduation was very memorable for me too, because I'd spent all of my childhood just looking forward to that milestone.
I think my first memories start around 4 years old. So the beginning of the 2000. The most memorable moment is probably the birth of my my little brother. I don't have children, not yet. So yeah, the most memorable moment is probably the birth of my brother. I was just 5 years old, not even 4. And I remember pretty well the night when he is born. I was in my room and my father told me, "We have to go. Your brother is coming." And I was at the hospital and everything. Yeah, it's pretty memorable.
Learned how to ride my bike, learned how to toboggan. Learned how to climb to the top of the monkey bars. That was actually a very, very exciting day because, you know, that was a big thing on our the playground in my school. There were certain kids who had like that kind of trick of like climbing up onto the monkey bars, like weaving through and sitting on top of it, like they were goddamn King Midas ruling over the entire land. And I just sat there for years going like, I want to be able to do that. So every afternoon I prepared. I climbed as best as I could, and I could never freaking do it. And then this one kid showed me like a really easy way of doing it where you climb onto this one bar near the monkey bars and then just hop up onto the top of it before. And I swear to God, I felt like I was on the top of Mount Everest when I climbed on those monkey bars for the first time. I didn't mean for that to be the most memorable moment of the 2000s, but I don't think anything I can say beyond this can top that as a memorable moment.
What's the most memorable moment of your 2010s?
I lived a lot of memorable moments, but I would say when I met my best friend, which is quite strange because we really don't have the same experience of this meeting. I met her the first day of university, and I remember asking her a lot of questions, and she didn't really wanted to answer back or starting a conversation. And so I told her like a few months after, yeah, this day when I met you, I asked you a lot of questions and you didn't answer. And she told me, no, it's not true. It's you. I asked you a lot of questions and you didn't answer. So we have a quite different story. However, she's my best friend now. It's been almost 6 years. And is the person with who I travel the most around the world. And I really enjoy spending time with her.
There's a lot more of it on, obviously, because I covered a lot more ground, went to a lot of different places, met a lot of new interesting people compared to the 2000s. I think the most crowning achievement, though, was in grade 10 and grade 11, I tried running for the student council at my school and horrendously failed both times. But it was all right. The campaigns were kind of like silly and all over the place, so I really don't regret the voters' decision. But I do remember the speeches. The speeches were just a spectacle, you know? It was, you're in front of your entire school, and you had to tell them why you rocked, why you were the best candidate. And for me, I said to myself, I gotta put on a show. Are you starting to see why I wasn't a very good candidate? I was so campaign driven, to be honest, half the time I didn't even realize, like, what exactly are my jobs going to be if I actually get elected? But no, grade 10, I was running for vice president of student council, and I said to myself, okay, I'm just gonna be the carrot top up there. Yeah, I had this ridiculously like fake long speech that like fell to the ground. I had, oh yeah, if you want lemons, you make lemonade. And I took lemons, threw them into the audience. Everybody cheered and laughed. Then I had this liter bottle of lemonade that I just kept with me like during the whole speech. The speech was really good. Everyone laughed. Everyone had fun. And then my time ran up. I had to walk off stage. And as I walked off stage, I chugged the entire 1 liter bottle of brisk lemonade in front of like 300 kids. And I got cheered on like audibly. And I did it. I did not choke. I was close. This was one of the greatest struggles of my life. God damn it! I don't care what people say. It was a struggle. And I said to myself, "You got to put on the show, man. You got to give the people what you want. Do not choke. Do not choke." And I didn't. I chugged the whole thing. Also threw the bottle in the audience. That might not have been a good idea, but everyone cheered me on. And I didn't win, but I got compliments about that speech for years afterwards.
Can I say like different memories? So the first one I think was in 2013 when I graduated from high school. Because I don't know why, but high school for me wasn't that memorable. But the transition between high school and university was really good. Like I loved my university years. And then in 2016, I came to Canada to study in an exchange program. I Yeah, I really liked it. That was my first time I ever liked studying at university. Yeah, that was really exciting. And even I don't know, even the atmosphere at the university, that was great. If I would say if I could kind of go back in time, I would say, okay, let's go back to 2016. And then the final um, moment that, like, memorable moment that I have of my 2010s would be, um, in, I would say, 2018. That's when, I think that's when I graduated. Yeah, 2018. That's when I graduated from university. And yeah, that was great that I made my parents proud and everything. So yeah.
My most memorable moments in my 2010s all had to do with education, work, and family. What I loved is that I got to reconnect with a lot of my high school friends once I came back from university. That was exceptionally memorable for me. Going to Europe when I was 18 for my first year of university, and I got to travel to 9 countries over the course of the year. That was incredible. Going to Peru, not with my family, but with my university to help doctors in Cusco for MedLife. I really loved doing that. And starting up a lot of working opportunities, whether it was any kind of part-time retail / customer service or full-time administration and everything in film, because everything has kind of enhanced me and allowed me to grow further as a person. What has been the most memorable world event that you've heard of or even witnessed so far?
The most memorable world event that I've seen so far has got to be COVID. I mean, there haven't been many other life experiences of mine where I've witnessed a tragedy that has stopped the way that the people around me and how I operate on a day-to-day life, or just globally seeing people having to stop and uproot their normal routines. The only other thing that I've seen similar to this in my lifetime, um, because my parents are Turkish, during the summer my mom would take me to visit her parents in Turkey. And one year when we went, we happened to be there at the time of a military coup. And I remember lifestyles changing there because of it for the time. And while they're both very different situations, Corona and the coup that occurred there, I remember both of them feeling like there's a change in how people are working. And what's different about COVID is it seems like there's no specific end date and it could continue for months and months on end instead of being a one-time conflict.
I made a little list beforehand. My second memory that I ever had in my life that I can remember back to was 9/11, actually. I know. Great second memory to have, right? I was 4 years old, September 2001, and it wasn't like a whole day kind of thing. I don't remember like the whole thing. I remember this little snippet of the day. And it was early morning. I was being driven back by my mom in the back seat of the car. I must have had some kind of toy with me because I was just like playing with something. And we pull into our house. And my next door neighbor, his name was Jean-Marc, popped out. And thing you gotta know about my neighbor Jean-Marc is that he was probably, and is probably, the most happy, optimistic person you can ever meet in your entire life. This dude eludes happiness. He was happy before it was cool, yo. So I think this is why I remember this little part of the day. He pops out. He has just a look of shock over his face. I think I thought to myself, like, what's wrong with Jean-Marc? What did I do? He starts saying something to my mom, and my mom almost immediately like closes the door because she doesn't want me to hear like what's going on. You know, I was 4. I guess I understand. But I sort of pieced together like way later down the line that my neighbor told my mom like, oh, something happened at the World Trade Center. And yeah. So I just sat in the car, played for a while. My mom took me in, and I was playing with my Hot Wheels while she was watching the whole thing go down on TV. So that's 9/11 for me. Lots of fun. Lots of... I think back, like, how far back can I think back? Oh, there was 9/11. Oh, yeah, shit. Well, I'm upset. Yeah, but, yeah. Sorry to whoever lost someone that day. I have friends of friends who lost people, so I know it was a big tragedy, but that's how I remember it. Probably the most significant thing that historic event that happened in 2016 for me was Trump's election. Oh boy, was that a night. And I have a bit of a story about it if I can tell it real quick. So it was 2016, November, obviously. I just started my second year at York University. Was just starting to focus in on my set program in marketing. And one of the first like major classes I took for it was just in business administration. I remember having so many doubts. And finally midterms came along. I thought for sure I flunked a couple of my midterms. And I was like, oh no, this is it. I'm done school. I'm never gonna be able to come back here. I get one of my midterms back. I got like 72%. I was like, hell yes! I don't know how on earth I succeeded in this, but we gotta celebrate. So the night after I got that midterm back, I called up a few of my friends, got a few of my roommates out. We went to this great place on York campus called Shopsy's. It's kind of a chain, but there's the Shopsy's on York. Everybody knows, everybody loves. We go in, start getting some drinks, start ordering some wings, some extra food, and we sort of look to our right, and we realize, oh, the election's tonight. Thank God! Because anyone who lived through 2016 knows, like, you couldn't turn on the news without seeing Trump. Thank God he's finally going to get his ass handed to him tonight. Oh, Ben, how innocent you were at that time. So the night goes on. We keep looking over. We see the map getting progressively redder and redder, and we're like, oh my God, this dude might actually win. So because of that, we order a bunch more drinks, because we're like, maybe if we drink enough, we'll completely forget about the election itself. Yeah! Only a temporary solution. Finally comes to be about 1:30. We all leave, head to our respective homes, and I'm just getting into bed when I realize, wow, I do not feel really good right now. My stomach was killing me, and I said to myself, oh no, I might wind up being up kind of late, throwing up. And that's exactly what happened. That began a lovely evening of just food poisoning that I don't really want to go deep into. But yeah, it was bad. Just take my word on that. I was very sick. Hardly got any sleep that night. Could hardly lie down. I was just in terrible pain. One of my roommates, Trish, helped me out a lot in just that night and that morning, the rest of that day. Thank you, Trish, if you are listening. You are the best. You are a god. But yeah, at about 10 a.m. the next morning, she came in and told me, oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw the news, but Trump got elected last night. He got elected. And I just I'd been letting out moans and growls all morning, and I finally just turned out and let out a very specific oh no. And I double checked my computer to see if she's BSing me, but nope. The whole point of this story is I got sick that night, that all that happened. Very likely was because of maybe a combo of drinking, and then the wings at Shopsy's was not very good. I do not recommend those wings. But I started getting sick at about 2:45, 3 in the morning. And I find out a little later, around 2:30 to 3 a.m. was around the time the election was called. So it could have been Shopsy's wings, could have been booze, could have been hell, maybe I licked a doorknob at some point the day before and I just don't remember. Or, just maybe, my body sort of knew the hell that was set before me.
So the most memorable world event is probably the coronavirus, and I think everybody's going to answer that. So it's not worse as expecting. It's not like in the movie like Contagion or World War Z, but it's still like unbelievable how an invisible thing had an impact in the life of almost all the planet. Yeah, we are all stuck home. But there is also other events that were memorable. For instance, I remember the day of the Brexit. I turned on the TV on the morning. I just woke up. I wanted to check because I was like, there is no way UK is going to leave Europe. So I turned on my TV and they left Europe, and I started crying because it was the morning. I was like, no, it's not happening. And same for the Trump election, which happened the same year. Yeah, you should never announce me something on the morning because I get very emotional.
Oh yeah, the most memorable world event that I've heard or witnessed so far is same-sex marriage. Cause I don't know, I have a couple of close friends who are gay. So because the same-sex marriage got approved in most countries around the world, I would say, yeah, that's I think that's the most memorable event for me and that I remember actually.
Okay, well, currently, the coronavirus is super memorable just because of the way it's drastically shifted everyday life in most places. One of the ones I do remember was 9/11 when I was 6 years old. It was, I think, my brother's first day of JK. And I remember when it happened, everything just kind of froze and shut down. The next day, we went to the library in our school, and the librarian was actually reading us a book about New York. And she flipped to a spread of the Twin Towers and she started crying. I hadn't understood the gravity of 9/11 truthfully until many, many years later, other than the fact that it drastically shifted our international security and the fact that it started the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. It was only much later on when I did my own research, looked at a lot more personal stories, and actually watched a lot of the live footage when I really realized the gravity of it, other than the fact that it was kind of a huge, unfortunately, it's like a huge and sad moment in pop culture / history. Are there any world issues you believe need to be resolved during this century?
I think there are lots of world issues that need to be resolved in this century, but I think because there are so many people with polarizing opinions and ways about going about things, it's going to be even harder to come to meaningful conclusions on those issues. And on top of that, new issues arise as we progress as a society, and those will be even harder to patch up, I think, the newer ones, the things that have just started to occur or will continue to occur. And ultimately, I don't think that as a culture globally, we're united enough to resolve issues that hold weight that we've created for ourselves or that have just been presented to us.
I feel like all of them is always sort of a nice thing to like strive for. See if you can add all those onto your planner. You know, like solve world hunger this week. You know, maybe we can get to women's rights next week. Maybe the week after. I don't know. Yeah, see what we got to do. But there's one that's always been pretty close by, and that's climate change. Climate change needs some serious. It needs to be looked at now, and that's actually the thing about climate change is that there's a lot of issues that we really should focus on. Climate change is something that like the world is going to have to deal with whether they want to or not moving forward. That's not a question of if or when. I mean, what was the statistic? Like the 20th century, we used up something like, I don't know, 20 to 40% of all the world's resources in the 1 century. You know, world population like 18 tupled or something in that amount of time. Like went from 1 billion to 7.5 billion or something like that in a century. If you don't look at certain stats like that and say, we should probably think about, not burning as much coal or cutting down quite as much rainforest, because you're not a very intelligent person. I'm sorry. Now we can differ on what we want to do about climate change. I'm definitely not some gung ho tear down all the oil wells and replace them all with solar panels and bike pedaling machines that will generate all the electricity that we need ever, and also eat kale. I'm not one of those people. I'm sort of in the middle. But please stop acting like there's nothing there. It was sad in the 90s. It was sad in the 2000s. It was very sad. It was almost psychotic in the 2010s. 2020s, I feel like you're going to lose. There's going to come a day where if you say, the climate's always been changing, we don't need to focus, you will be, ran out of town. And, we should tell you what, I would very much love to bring back, those, public humiliation things back in, the medieval times when you, hook up, pelt them with the tomatoes. I feel like that should be the punishment for all climate change deniers, except maybe not tomatoes though. I don't know. Maybe pelt them with snowballs. Oh wait, I don't think we'll have quite as many about that. Pelt them with the skeletons of the once great polar bear that will no longer be with us. Too dark? Yeah, maybe too dark. Yeah, we gotta get to work on it.
But yeah, climate change it's crazy. So I think a lot of measures will be set up to get rid of climate change, I would say.
The biggest issue is probably global warming. With everybody staying home, the planet now can rest a little bit. And I hope people will understood that their daily life have an impact on the planet. But I'm not sure they're gonna understood that.
Does everyone think Apple will survive the 21st century? How many iPhones do you think there will be? And what other companies do you think could make it to the end of this century?
I think companies like Apple, Amazon, and Google will survive just because of the way that they operate. I especially think Google and Amazon are here for the long haul. I think that both of those two companies have built themselves up to a point where they are fundamental in our society. Both of these companies are required for a lot of the ways that we live our lives. And it's not just that they're banking off of that necessity, but they're continuing to make themselves more important in how we as a society operate. So instead of just understanding their importance now, they're also thinking about their importance in the future, which is why I believe they will stay for centuries to come.
I don't believe Apple is going to survive the next century. It's going to end, probably. I didn't see any incredible change since the death of Steve Jobs. He was the head of the company. But there's some economical theories saying that the next economic growth will be when the GAFA will collapse. The GAFA, which is, Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. However, I don't think it's going to happen soon. It's going to happen probably, but we will face a huge crisis in a few months after the coronavirus. And it's not the GAFA collapse that's going to happen.
Of course Apple's going to survive. I've always imagined, if anyone's seen WALL-E, you've heard of, by and large, the super mega widespan corporation that covers everything. I keep on thinking to myself, by and large is definitely, a certain version of by and large is going to exist in the 21st or 22nd century. I'm just wondering what company is going to wind up being it, Top two answers for me are still, top three answers right now are still Walmart, Apple, or Amazon. But I always like to kind of imagine, maybe some, random weird store that you would never guess winds up winds up being it in like the 22nd century. We'll be like, all bow down to the mega corporation, Orange Julius Incorporated. And anyone from now is just like, what? That's, oh, okay. I like their smoothies, so they must have had a good business plan.
Yeah, I personally think that Apple will survive because they have quite a lot of product range, like Mac Pros, iPhones, iPads, iPad Pro, and I think Apple is really good for when it comes to kind of those graphic stuff where we can draw with their iPads, I would say. But also, a lot of people like their iPhones. There's always a huge lineup after a new iPhone is launched. How many iPhones do you think there will be? Oh, well, there will be a lot of iPhones if it's like the 21st century. For yeah, if it's for the whole 21st century. Oh, I would say that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a specific number, but I would say at least 100, probably. Yeah. What companies do you think will make it to the end of this century? Ooh, I know. I definitely think that the biggest like companies of nowadays will survive. Most of them, I believe, like Samsung, Apple, and yeah, other companies, I would say. But actually, and Amazon too. I definitely think that Amazon will survive for a long time. I personally think that Chinese companies like Alibaba and yeah, and these kind of companies will survive because yeah, a lot of people are using these companies. I know.
Honestly, as long as Apple is able to stay ahead of the curve and that they're the ones making the trends and they're still able to simultaneously adapt at the same time, then yeah, I think they will eventually survive until the end of the century. But other companies I do think will make it. Definitely Google and Amazon for sure, because not only are they just huge juggernauts, but the more you use them, the more valuable they become. Google is an unlimited library of information and data, and with Amazon, it's become part of our it's become kind of expected that okay, if we need something really badly, we can order it on Prime. So, it's been ingrained in our daily lives to the point where if those things were taken away, it would create a lot of inconvenience. So I do think those companies will survive for the long haul. Do you think our generation will live longer given all the technological innovations and focus on health?
I really don't know. I'm gonna give sort of a yes and no kind of answer because we do live in an immense world of health benefits and just wondrous new technologies. But we also live in a world where there's a McDonald's like 2 blocks away from it, where anybody lives. And those Big Macs are freaking good, man. Yeah, we live in a world with trans fats. We live in a world with high fructose corn syrup. We live in a world where you can not leave your house for a matter of days and just be completely entertained, not exercise at all. Heck, right now I'm eating sour cream glazed and chocolate glazed Timbits. Okay, they're probably one bite of each of these is probably taking a year off of my life expectancy alone. All right, so I don't know. There's been reports that say that like we might be part of the generation I'm in right now and so on might be some of the first generations that don't outlive their parents, and that's sad. I feel like everyone's got to take good care of themselves, and if that's the case, maybe one big thing I'm hoping for eventually. I hope the singularity comes by. I hope we can be mixed with those machines, man. Hope we can become the cyborgs. I hope we live the world of altered carbon eventually, where you can legit just bang bang get shot like maybe 10, 15 years, get reincarnated. Perfect. Or maybe even eventually. I want to be preset in the body of Anthony Mackie. That sounds fucking amazing. My answer is maybe yes, probably no, definitely yes if we get robots.
Yes, probably. We will have the opportunity to live longer. Anyway, I think if we die, it will be more because of climate change events such as fire or thunderstorm or coronavirus, I'm sure. I suppose the future will tell us. Let's see.
Yes, I think we will be living longer. And hopefully, because there is such a focus and a movement on health, we are living longer, but we're still living well. Because now we do have the resources to live longer and longer, but I do see a lot of elderly people who are living, but they're not really enjoying a high quality of life because they're mostly kind of confined to their houses or to the nursing homes they're in. So hopefully the 21st century kind of gets that right in that we're here for a good time and a long time.
I think first of all they will have to find a medicine, like a treatment, and then a vaccine for this virus going on, and then after that, yeah, why not? With the technological innovations and everything, like how in movies they are portraying how the future will be like. So I think, yeah,
What might be something that the 21st century could get wrong in comparison to other centuries?
we're having the coronavirus right now, and and I'm getting so frustrated, and I hope, like I really hope that this situation will calm down, because like I was looking forward to summer. Coronavirus is the biggest flop, I hope so, for the 21st century.
I think that in the 21st century, something that's easy to get wrong or something we have to really be aware of is how the information that we consume is changing the way that we work and we operate, like our attention spans, our interaction with other people, while we're being while we're being digitally literate, while we can learn that on our own. I also think it's important that schools begin to teach that to young kids, because all of the targeted content and advertising that's online that we consume every day, without the skills needed to navigate those things, it can be really dangerous to younger generations. And without restrictions that we place on ourselves while navigating through the information age, we could create, and like we have created, toxic environments that are generally just going to be harmful for ourselves in the long run.
So nowadays, about art, especially, I think it's more about mass content instead of quality content. I hope it's gonna change, but as we can see now, no. Netflix is just looking for more content to give to people. People don't even care about if it's quality or not. They just watch a movie, they say, oh, it was good or it was not. Doesn't really matter. I hope it's going to change, but for the moment I don't think, because we are always looking for more instead of quality thing.
I feel like the planet's going to be hurt until we start really focusing, all right? We're going to, unfortunately, probably have to go through a lot more hurricanes, a lot more flooding, a lot more melting the ice caps before people start to really realize, like, we're causing all this harm.
What is something, be it technology or art, that you are looking forward to seeing evolve over the course of the century?
Virtual reality, I'm so excited about. I've been to a couple virtual reality cafes in the city. Every single time, it is a mind trip, all right? Super insane. I damn near fainted when I played this one game where the entire game is literally you just stand out on this like long, you're pretty much walking the plank off like a building. And if you step too far one side, you fall, and I swear to God, I truly felt like I was falling off a building. It had silly kind of like graphics that were like circa like 2007, like early Wii game kind of graphics, but still somehow it made me feel like I was part of this virtual world. So we lived, like think of the differences between like cell phones in like 2003 versus like the smartphones today, and that's probably what virtual reality's transition is going to be in the next like 15 years. So I'm excited, honestly. I'm kind of hoping we don't go full-fledged Sword Art Online. yeah, I'm hoping not to be trapped in this crazy virtual world where I can actually die. Although that'd still be kind of damn cool. Hell, it was a good plot for an anime. But yeah, hoping that doesn't happen. But other than that, VR all the way, man.
I really look forward to seeing technology evolve. I think that there hasn't been huge technological innovations for quite some time. I think that VR is a promising one, but obviously it's in a baby phase. It's not really at its peak yet, and I really hope that it'll reach that. I'm really excited to see it reach that.
I don't know. I've always wanted to see how, for example, movie theaters will evolve. Like, for example, you know those hologram graphic stuff. I've always wanted to watch a horror movie, but in hologram. And yeah, I don't know. It's just intriguing, I think. But also, I'm looking forward when it comes to like health technology, and probably with as time goes by, there's gonna be new forms of art.
Honestly, right now, I'm looking forward to seeing films and the way they evolve, especially with special effects, with streaming and everything like that. Each time I think film has kind of topped itself and is not going to be enhanced further, they kind of just go and one up themselves, especially with special effects. I'll go and watch movies that are older, like of course 80s and 60s I expect things to look a little hokey, but even stuff now in the 90s looks pretty obsolete in comparison to what they have now. So it's going to be interesting to even be watching movies in the 2050s and then going back to things like anything kind of like with the Avengers. I feel like it'll be funny to see it look older and then my kids or grandkids going, "Oh, that looks so fake," even though for me it looked super real. So it'll be fun to see that change. If you could choose to live in any century, would you choose this one? Why or why not?
If I could choose any century to live in, I would 100% pick this one. I think even though there are so many issues and there's so much conflict, I think we are also in a unique position where we have more freedom of thought expression than we've ever had before. And there's just so much that we can do. We have boundless potential now because of all the information we have access to. And I think in another century, not having that would, it's not something that you would know that you're missing, but I think being in this position now is really enjoyable.
I think I would like to live in the 80s, like living my 20s in the 80s. Why? Because every old person, they are not old like my parents, people that are into like 50 years now, they all say like, oh, it was better in the 80s. They say that all the time, so I would like to check by myself.
My answer is always I'd love to go back and visit old centuries, but it's like going and visiting like a lot of different cities. It looks marvelous and splendid that first little amount of time that you're there, that first week or two, but a lot of places you'll find as time goes by, you start to notice more and more of the problems. And yeah, I feel like that would be the case with going back to almost any century previously. I mean, 20th century would be pretty good, but if you get polio for a decent portion of that century, you're going to be kind of in trouble. 15th century would be kind of nice, but right, like there's no electricity. Heck, the first century around the Roman time would be pretty nice. You could be, I don't know, you could be hit by a catapult. Catapults were still big things back then, right? Right? Am I in the right century? Yeah, so I'd definitely pick the 21st century. This really is probably one of the first centuries ever where almost anyone, anywhere, of any background, of any language, of any religion, can really, truly bring themselves up and be what they want to be. And that is magical, right?
So I believe it was last week when we asked what age would we live in. I had said, and this was pre-social distancing. We'd filmed a bunch of episodes before going to our respective homes and doing the quarantine. When I'd recorded the 21 questions episode, I had said that I would want to come of age in the 80s, and I was mainly thinking because of the music and the culture. But given everything that's happened now with the quarantine, I'm perfectly happy with being in this century, looking at all the innovations made so that I'm able to, even during this time, I can communicate with my friends, my boyfriend. I haven't gone insane. I don't know how we would have survived something like this even 20 or 30 years ago. It would have been, I think a lot of people would have just gone crazy by this point. And this wraps up our episode for this week. I'm so thankful to the Tiny Table Talks team for taking the time to answer these questions for this pretty unconventional episode about the 21st century so far. We'll be back at the table, we'll be back at our separate tables next Thursday discussing and answering questions about the quarantine life itself. What have we been up to? How have we been staying productive? And how have we been staying sane? Follow us on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube at the CC Zone, and tune in next Thursday.
So thank you all for listening to another Tiny Table Talks.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.